Hey everyone, Mr. Volpe here, checking in with you guys for our week 6. Just a few weeks left for our first half here, the 1101 half, and then we'll be moving on to 1102, more of a focus on literary analysis and that sort. So for this week, the first half of the week, I'd say your descriptives, the remainder of them, those of you who don't have them yet, you'll be getting them back rated this week. Most of you have done a very good job. Some of you have actually done an exceedingly great job. Really beautiful essays from some of you guys, really harnessing that rich, lush, figurative language. It's challenging to find that right balance between using it effectively, but at the same time concisely and duly restrained. It's easy as someone who writes poetry and admires poetry, lyrical, romantic poetry, especially. I understand how easy it is to kind of get off the trail there and really indulge that rich, sumptuous language to the point that it just becomes overkill and is sort of obscures what you're talking about. You have to remember that metaphor works on two levels. It's a figurative expression, a word, a phrase, an image that directly conflates a concrete thing and some different sort of abstract idea. Two images brought together that wouldn't necessarily be brought together, but through the power of abstract thinking, you could kind of make the link. So metaphor has to stay on the road, and the tires have to meet the asphalt, and the lane has to be adhered to. You could say her smile was the sunshine. That's a pretty good metaphor. Bright smile, physical smile is one thing. The sunshine, a beautiful star, the life sustainer, etc. I mean, you could do all sorts of things with that. But if you say her smile was, and then you just start going off on this long, convoluted ramble about using images that don't quite fit, or maybe are a little jarring or awkward, well, then you're letting that figurative language get the better of you, and you're kind of letting it fly off, and you can't quite tether it. You need to keep it to use a metaphor, like a kite, where you could control it, rather than, say, a balloon that's escaped your grasp. Okay, so enough of that. I'm kind of getting off the rails myself here, describing these things. So, argument and persuasion. We talked about the Aristotelian appeals during last week's video, ethos, pathos, and logos. Maybe I'll reiterate those real quickly. Ethos, character, credibility, the authority, who are you to speak on the topic. Pathos, emotion, the human element, as I like to call it, tugging at the heartstrings, and logos, logic, objective observation, facts, data, rationality, sensibleness, let's say, all of those things. So a recap there. Now about the topics, you guys have, many of you have come to me, and I've been trying to be as good as I can about replying in pretty quick succession to your emails, to make sure you have the go-ahead and you know that, hey, I have it signed off on, I could go ahead with my topic, maybe even my thesis. A lot of you, we've talked via email about yay or nay with your topic and thesis, and I appreciate how you guys have taken responsibility and have done your due with clearing your topics with me. Now, it's not compulsory that you all must individually email me and clear your topics with me. Of course, Miss Evans there is there as well, and she and I communicate, and we're all kind of in the loop. But it's always going to benefit you, I think, to talk to me, to have me clear your topic, maybe second it with Miss Evans, we'll go back and forth. Just kind of like the same idea with a rough draft. By the way, if you have a rough draft and you give me one, by the first half of the week, email it to me. I'll respond and try to give you some observations. I'm going to be a little busy this week with grading with all of my classes. Papers are kind of converging. I need to get assignments back. So I'm not sure I'm going to be able to give quite the level of specific, granular, fine-tooth comb comments back to your rough drafts this week. It'll probably be more overarching global comments and observations, but I'll still try to get to everyone if you send one to me. So argument and persuasion this week, guys, no research required on this one. In fact, there should not be any research, okay? This is strictly your intuitions, your experiences. Although that brings something to mind, though. With this essay, you want to do your best to avoid using I or any first-person pronoun, I, us, our, we, in the interest of trying to remain as objective as possible, okay? So, some of you might say, well, how do I do this? It's my opinion. I'm making the argument. How do I avoid using first-person pronouns? Let's do a little exercise here. I think he is mean. Now, how can I express that same idea without I, or the phrase I think? Well, I just remove it. He is mean, okay? So I write he is mean in my paper. The reader on the other end gets the idea that it is I who has the thought he is mean. I'm the one who has my name on the paper, after all. We can presume that it is my thought. So there's no need to qualify it with I think or in my opinion. Instead of saying in my opinion, the deficit should be cut in half. Just say the deficit should be cut in half. Or it's reasonable to argue that the deficit should be cut in half. If you were to make some argument about the deficit. Economics bore me to no end, so not even a really good example. But in any case, I think you guys get the drift. The other essays, descriptive and narrative, these are very much ones about you interacting in your world, your personal experiences with other people. They very much have to do with intimate relationships. This is you arguing about principles and ideas that could be debated. So you want to kind of remove yourself from things, as it were. So kind of keep your subject and thesis over here and kind of look at it, hold it, observe it, play with it analytically, but you don't want to keep saying I, me, we, us, R. Okay, it kind of cheapens your ethos factor, your credibility as an arguer, as a persuader. It's almost as like you're waving your hands up and down, desperate to show everybody, it's me, I'm the one who's thinking the thoughts, okay? For an argument, for an essay like this, it's really not appropriate. So do your best to not include I, me, first-person pronouns, okay? Unless, I'll make this little caveat there, unless you have maybe a personal example that you can contribute that is going to be germane to your argument, meaningful and relevant. That being said, though, at the same time, you don't want to get too off track talking about personal anecdotes, and it's a good rule of thumb to just avoid the personal altogether, okay? Whenever you're arguing with somebody, as soon as they get personal or even share an anecdote, there's even a saying out there, an anecdote is not a piece of data, okay? A personal story is not a data point. It's not necessarily factual. I mean, it's factual in that you experienced the thing, but I don't want to get all hippy-dippy philosophical for today's video. It's already running on more than I thought it would. Don't overthink it, about the whole, is it my personal experience business or not? Just as a golden rule, you want to try to avoid over-personalizing this essay, okay? Otherwise, again, you want to avoid the sort of tired, cliche topics, gun control, abortion, legalization of marijuana, because these are things that I frankly, in teaching for 5 years, which isn't that long, but it seemed like I've already read more than my fair share of papers on those kind of cliche, old hat topics. Like, I don't really need another opinion on abortion, good or bad, or marijuana, good or bad, lower the drinking age, etc., etc. unless you give me something so startlingly, staggeringly refreshing, I'm not really interested in hearing it. So go for something new, even a proposal. Argue your case this way. The neighborhood needs a better playground, okay? And you can make your argument on why the neighborhood needs a better playground. And you could do that without mentioning you. The neighborhood of Segovia needs a better playground because its residents are currently playing on rusted, broken equipment in a state of abject disrepair. Okay? So I say the residents, families, third person. No need to use first person. Okay? So whatever it is, guys, go ahead and give it your all. As we mentioned during last week's blog, and as I shared in my blog post, I think I fall prey to this all the time, kind of becoming like an ideological sort of horn through which other people, pundits, celebrities, the culture at large, are voicing, are sounding their opinions. And sometimes I don't even really know where I stand on things. What's my position? What do I feel to be truth? And we might have talked about this. Is there such thing as an overarching moral truth? Some people call that God, and I think they have a point. I won't get into religious matters right now, although it is Lent Wednesday, so that should be fun. Yeah. Your truth is not necessarily the truth, but you have to know where you stand, okay? And that's what I was kind of venting in that blog post. I said, like, man, sometimes, guys, when I'm wading the waters of social media, I hear people from all sides talk, and I'm like, okay, I can see where they're coming. I can see where they're coming from too. And sometimes I wonder, well, where do I stand on this? We get lost in this sea of sound bites and 5-minute spots on cable news, liberals and conservatives barking at each other all the time. Is that what we want? Is that getting us anywhere? Is our discourse improving? Is it deteriorating? That was what that blog was trying to approach. As for this week for the blog, I think I'm just going to reopen from last week. I'm not going to have an original new blog post for week 6. Just kind of keep on voicing your same considerations, opinions on, do we argue too much? Are we not arguing in the right ways, perhaps? And again, blogs are going to accumulate as bonus points that I'm going to add in some fashion. I haven't figured it out yet. More on that later, probably within the next few weeks, because our 1101 half is going to finish in a few weeks. All right, folks. Well, at the risk of kind of rambling on here, I meant this to be a good 5 minutes shorter than it has gone on to be. I'm going to leave that as it is and wish you all a great, productive week. Come to me with any questions or concerns. Best of luck. Have a great week, folks.